Morning, everyone. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Foundations class. For those that are watching online, welcome and thank you. And if you're unfamiliar with us, we are Brit Am Messianic Synagogue. We are a Messianic synagogue, which means that we are Jews and non-Jews who worship the Jewish Messiah Yeshua together in unity. And we find it totally consistent to believe in Yeshua and follow biblical Judaism. And so after our congregation was established for quite some time, we found that we had a lot of people that had a lot of questions. And so we started this class so that each week we would have about 45 minutes of open forum questions that people could ask so that we didn't have things just linger on for a long time without having answers to important questions. So when COVID began, we switched to where we were not only doing this live, but we started doing it on Facebook Live. And then when we started meeting back again, we just decided we would continue to do it that way. And that caused us to change a little bit in how we do the class. We used to just do raise your hand, ask questions, back and forth discussion, but with people watching online as well as in the house, we were unable to continue doing it that way and making it make sense. So we switched to where people were in-house would ask questions, and online they would just put the question in the comment, but then that moved too fast for me to watch and keep up with. So I decided to have people that are online to email me their questions, and then I will answer their questions just by reading the question in-house. And then those in-house, I have writing their questions down on paper also so that I can read the questions, and then the people that are watching online can hear both the question and the answer, because we were having problems with that too. So with all that said, and hopefully I'm not going to make all of that announcement anymore after this week. We've just told the whole story and the history of Foundations class, and next week we'll just begin with questions and prayer and not have all the discussion about what and why and who and how and why we're doing what we're doing. So with that said, please be praying for Jim. Pray for Robin, pray for Fred and Miss Mabel, pray for Timothy, pray for David Wilkes' mom, who is diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. That doesn't look, we say diagnosed, that means the doctors guessed at something. They can be accurate at what they're guessing, but they're practicing, and God is the ultimate physician, and so just because they say something doesn't necessarily mean that it's what it is, nor does it mean it's the ultimate judgment on somebody's life and future. So we're praying for her. We're also praying for his dad, so please remember to pray for both of those. Also pray for Miss Pammy, my wife. She's doing well, but the other day she just got a bad headache and nauseous and just came on her suddenly, and then it left suddenly, so we just want to make sure it doesn't return in any way. Prayer requests from in-house. Linda? Okay, Linda has a coworker that's sick, so we want to pray for him. Joe?
My goddaughter, Amelia.
Joe's goddaughter, Amelia. Sam?
Prayer for my wife, Joanne. She's having issues with her back and neck.
Okay, Joanne's having issues with her back and neck. Also pray for Catherine. She wasn't feeling well this morning. Joe?
Tamara's tooth, jaw.
Yeah, Tamara's got a tooth problem and a jaw problem, and neither was caused by Joe. So we just want to pray for God's healing in her life. Anyone else real quick? Pray for our schools locally and around the country, for those that have been following. As a result of COVID, they decided they were going to break the schools up into virtual schools and then in school and then homeschool and all that. Well, this last week, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, because you're actually in the system, they opened it back up for parents who wanted to change their mind to go back to in-house school.
And there's a
and Right, and there's an influx of students, as there would be. But however, now we're dealing with staffing issues to get people that they let go back into places and all this stuff. So look, the adults can deal with what they have to, and we'll pray for them, but I just don't want the students to get so disheartened by all this that they miss out on learning what they really need to learn. We need to pray that the students don't think that the adults are as mixed up as we appear.
Well, and with that was my next prayer request is, it is extremely chaotic and tumultuous.
Yes.
With all the changes, but there's a lot of admin change, there's a lot of just changes in general, and it's very disruptive.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We're having so much swirl, and look, if the adults are having problems keeping up with the swirl, the kids are having even more problems keeping up with it. So we want to pray for our kids. Sam, real quick.
Yeah, on the same note, we had the new school superintendent for San Jose County at our Republican meeting Thursday night, and she said that this week Pace High School had the largest number of COVID cases per capita of any high school in the state of Florida. So please be in.
Yeah, we need to pray. I want to say this, and I'm not trying to be politically correct because I don't act politically correct, almost never. But I am trying to be wise. We need to pray against this sickness while at the same time not allowing fear to drive our actions. Because while it is true that Pace High School has the largest number of COVID cases in the state, the vast majority of those children have no symptoms, and if they have symptoms, they're very light symptoms. That doesn't mean that COVID isn't dangerous to certain segment of society with comorbidities and things, and we don't have to pay attention to that. But we can't drive our actions by fear. We have to drive them by common sense and following wisdom in how we do things. And so, yes, we have COVID cases in Pace. It's interesting because I was watching on the news yesterday, and it said this hospital had their COVID cases increased by 50%. So, which is, horrible when you think, oh no, they went up by 50% or 75%. But if there was only 2 cases in the hospital to begin with, that means they got one more case. So 50% is not that dramatic in many cases. And in my experience, when the news media uses a percentage instead of a number, it's because the number would not scare you as much as the percentage. And so I want us to be wise in handling this. I think we should wash our hands. I think if you're sick, stay away from synagogues, stay away from groups of people. Don't go to places. And that's not just if you're sick with COVID, but if you're sick with whatever. Just use common biblical wisdom. There's a reason the Bible teaches us to wash our hands and to bury our refuse and those things. This is biblical stuff. This is not something new. Yes?
Pray for Tasha and the kids.
Pray for Tasha and the kids. Absolutely. So again, I don't want anybody to go away from here thinking I said that nobody is sick with COVID or COVID is a made-up thing or anything like that. It is a sickness. There are people that have died from it. But it is we can't be ruled by fear rather than common sense and common actions. Yes.
The baby's been visiting.
Yes, right now. And what was the baby's first name again?
Cohen.
Cohen. So we want to pray for Cohen right now, and then we're going to pray for all these other needs. Cohen is 2.5 months, right? Yes. And so we're praying for him. He's going in for a procedure right now. And so, Abba, we just come right now together praying as Mishpocha, as family, for little Cohen, 2.5 months old and having surgery even as we're speaking. We ask that you would strengthen that little body, Abba. We ask that nothing that's done to that little body would be done adversely to that child. Father, that no medication, no treatment, no activity of anybody handling this case would be done in any way that would bring about a detriment to that body. We ask that you strengthen Cohen so that whatever happens in this procedure, that recovery is quick and well, that they are able to fix whatever they need to fix so that this child can have a healthy and happy life in you. Father, we ask you to increase the faith in the parents and comfort them during this time and the entire family. Father, bring peace to them so that they might trust you fully. And we ask this in Yeshua's name. We also pray for each of the other requests, and especially for our children, Father, that are going through all the turmoil that's going on between the sicknesses and between international affairs, between political affairs in our nation, all of the nonsense going on. We ask that you will put spiritual blinders on their eyes and their hearts, that they will not see the adults in their lives acting like children. And we ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen. So I have several questions that came online, so I'm going to start with them. I also have several questions from in the house. I'm going to try to get to all of these, and then if you have a question, there's a pen and paper on the desk there. Just bring it up and place it on this little stool here, and I'll get to that. So the first question came from Catherine. And Catherine's question was, I believe, for a friend of hers that asked her to ask these. Did Yeshua really descend into hell? What was the context of that? So my answer is very straightforward. Yes, and I have no idea. And the reason I say that is the context of it is that what we have is just in the one statement that says he descended and he took the keys to death and hell and those things, but it doesn't give us any further context, and I'm not going to make it up. Lots of people have made up context to that. What we do know is that he did go. It says he preached to spirits there. He took the keys to death and hell, and that's what we know, and I'm okay with that. And when I get there and I sit down over coffee with him, I'll try to get more information if there's coffee there. I kind of hope there is, but I won't make up things to fill in things, and neither should anybody else. There is a real hell. It's interesting when people talk about the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. One of the important things to note about that is nowhere in that text does it say it was a parable. There's lots of places where he taught and it says, and he spoke a parable and said this, and he spoke a parable and said that. In the case of the rich man and Lazarus, it just said there was a rich man. So it doesn't say it was a parable. So I absolutely believe there was a hell. I believe whatever he did there, it was for our victory. There is great discussion about who these souls were that he preached to and when that was. Remember, and it's important to remember that hell is outside of time also. So did he preach to people here? What did he do? I don't know. We don't know, and I'm not going to make it up. But he did go, and the context is exactly what the text of the passage says, and we just don't have any more than that. And I kind of wish we did, because it would make answering questions like this easier. But we don't have anything beyond that. Okay, her second question, did Yeshua share all thoughts with the Father, or did he have some of his own? He is one with the Father in all ways. So he did not have thoughts outside of that which the Father knew. Remember, John says, the Father robed himself in flesh and dwelt among us. It doesn't say he created a separate being with a separate mind that dwelt among us. And so, no, he did not have separate thoughts of his own. I know that people will then bring up the statement that says no one knows the time or the hour but the Father in heaven. How does Yeshua not know the time or the hour? He was speaking in an idiom there, talking about the Father and the wedding case, and how the son would want to get married right away, but he had to wait until the Father told him all things were ready for him to go get his bride. I share all the time how Pammy and I, when we first got engaged, we had said, well, we're going to get married in June. And then we started talking with, so, if we get married in June, nothing's really going to change because neither, she didn't have parents alive or family, and my family wasn't coming. So why are we waiting till June to save up money to have a big wedding and spend all this money on something that our family's not even going to be at? And let's do it in May, and then let's do it in April, and let's do it in March, and let's do it in 10 days. So we got married 10 days later, but the honest truth is that if my father had been involved in that decision, we probably would not have gotten married in 10 days because he would have counseled me. Do you have money in the bank? Do you have a good job? Are you able to support this, pay me in the way that she needs to be supported? What happens if she gets pregnant and you guys have a baby on the way? What are your plans? And so it's just speaking in that way. And Yeshua is saying, I love my bride so much, I want to get married to her right now, but I'm waiting until all things are fulfilled. So it is not a matter of him not knowing the time or the hour. It's a way of him sharing with people to understand his love for them. Okay, the second question. This came from Morgan, can somebody celebrate Sabbath on Saturday and still attend church services on Sunday? Or since the Sabbath is on Saturday, it's a sin to have service on Sunday? This is a great question, and it's one that needs to be discussed at least in some manner. The answer to the question is yes, you can celebrate Sabbath on Saturday and go to worship every day of the week. We should worship every day of the week. In Judaism, it's not a matter of just worshiping on Saturday. There's 3 different prayer meetings every day, prayer times every day that you go before the Lord and you gather in different services at different times and different things going on. It's never been just one day a week that you worship. I will say this. It is important that if you're going to go somewhere on Sunday, that you go somewhere where they're actually preaching the truth. It's really important that you don't just go somewhere that you're going to listen to stuff that's not true. And that doesn't matter whether it's going to church or doing anything else. If you're a doctor, you don't want to go somewhere and take classes that tell you how to do something that's going to kill patients and not help them. If you're a real estate agent, you want to go somewhere and take classes with people that are going to tell you how to better sell, not how to steal and deceive and lie and coerce and those kind of things. So same thing with going to worship. If you're going to worship, that's wonderful. But if you're going somewhere where they're teaching heresy or unbiblical things, then you need to question why you're going there for that. So anyhow, I hope that answered Morgan's question. It's absolutely okay to worship every day of the week and celebrate the Sabbath. Matter of fact, tomorrow morning, because George and Rivka are going to be at Freedom Church, I'm going to go worship at Freedom Church and listen to them teach. But there's a lot of places I would not do that at, and I would encourage them not to attend and participate. So that's that. I hope that answered that question. Next question came from Missy, and I had to do it at this time because they were feeding their animals on the farm and said, could I wait until 9:15 before I answered their questions so they would be online to listen to them. So I have done that. Okay, and this is another really good question. It says, this is a question my family has really struggled with. Are we allowed to touch live pigs? Are we allowed to touch a pig that we have killed after it's dead, touch the carcass? We've read the scripture. We understand that we are not even to touch a pig nor the carcass. There are 4-H projects that involve raising a pig and then going to UF to learn how to butcher, cut, and wrap the pork. There is good money in producing pork, and we could sell out of it easily with good profit, but we never have because we understand that we are forbidden to do so. Secondarily, my son is considering veterinarian as an occupation. I don't think he could get through vet school without working on pigs. We want to do what we're supposed to do. We've never had pigs, but if it's not offensive to Adonai, then we would consider the 4-H project and other options involving pigs. Please look into this carefully, and as an accurate answer is important. Thank you for helping us. And I'm very glad they asked this question. It's important. First of all, Let me answer the first, try to answer in order. Are we allowed to touch live pigs? Yes. Are we allowed to touch a pig that we've killed after it's dead, to touch its carcass? Yes. The prohibition of touching pigs or dead animals was in connection with being able to go to the temple. It was a cleanliness to go to the temple issue, just like sickness, or when a woman has her time of the month, or any touching a dead body in battle, or having a baby, or any of the other things. There was a period of time which you were unclean until you went through the cleanliness process for that particular thing, and then you could go to the temple. Pigs were used as garbage disposals in biblical times. So people would have pigs, and that was where they threw their garbage, their refuse, their dead bodies. Pigs will eat every part of a body. If you're, I was going to say, if you're wanting to get rid of a body, but I don't want to suggest that. But they were of an animal body. You hit a deer in the road, and it's too bad. You'd throw it into pigs, but pigs were given and created by God to serve a purpose. But that purpose was not for them to be food. They do have a purpose. God, same thing with ants and worms and other things. They have a designed purpose for the ecology of our world. So yes, you can touch pigs. Yes, you can touch dead pigs after you've killed it. So those had to do with cleanliness. As far as 4-H projects, I don't know how I would handle that. I would not, if I knew somebody was going to be eating the pig, I would not butcher, cut, and wrap the pork. That's me. I'm not telling you what to do. But I look at that, it's kind of like when I first came to faith, I was in a congregation, in Yeshua, I was in a congregation where they wouldn't let you have a television. You can't have a television. You need to get rid of your television. But then what everybody would do was take their television and sell it to somebody. And so and that bothered me, because I thought, if it's bad for me, why is it okay for me to sell it to somebody else? Isn't that kind of like, the people that came to the Lord and they got off of heroin or cocaine or crack or something, and they've got all this leftover product that they have? Well, I'm not going to use it anymore because I'm a believer, but I'm going to sell it to my neighbor who's not a believer because I'm not going to use it. But I don't see that as something that we should do. So I would not personally get into the producing, cutting, butchering, selling of pork products, because I find it inconsistent with it's the same as if you ask that question about any other sin, would you be able to say, well, as long as you don't murder a believer, it's okay to murder. It's okay to have an affair. And unfortunately, in traditional Judaism, in the very Orthodox communities, there are those that believe that they can use the services of prostitutes as long as they're not Jewish. And things like that. It's this mindset that as long as it's not saved people or Bible-believing people, it doesn't matter what they're doing. And so we can profit off of that. I don't think we should profit off of things that we wouldn't do. If you think it's ungodly for you to do and that God wouldn't want you to do it, I wouldn't sell it to somebody else. And especially because, let's say I was sharing with David, and David was a heathen. Let's use your imagination. And so David was a heathen, and I'm trying to share with him, and we sit down for lunch. And I pull out my lamb sandwich, and he pulls out his ham sandwich, and I'm eating it, and he goes, hey, what is that? I say, it's lamb. I was, oh man, I've never tried lamb. You want some of my ham sandwich? And I say, no, I don't eat pork. And why not? Well, the Bible tells us that it's not for us to eat, that it's an abomination to the Lord to eat a pig and those things. And then I said, but hey, I got a pig in the car that I'm not going to eat. If you want it, Did I not just tell him it's an abomination and then say, but it's okay because you're going to hell anyhow, so here. I mean, that's in the reality. I know that's kind of straightforward, but in the reality, that's what we're doing. You know, I'm not going to use these drugs anymore, but you're still living like hell, so here. That shouldn't be our mindset, in my opinion. So I hope that answers your question. As far as the veterinarian, absolutely nothing wrong with him becoming a veterinarian, working on pigs to save their lives. Pigs are people too. So yeah, I'm just kidding. Pigs are created animals of God, just like dogs. We don't eat dogs. But nobody asked the question, can I go be a vet to work on a dog or a cat? Or, you know, so if you're trying to help and save the life of an animal that has a created purpose by God, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a vet. And I think your son would make an outstanding veterinarian, and I encourage him to do that. So anyhow, those are the questions that came over the interweb. I do want to say this. If you're watching on the internet and you have a question, in the description it has my email address. If you want me to answer the question in this class, email me the question. If you put it on Facebook in a message to me, or you put it on the Bridom page or something, it may not ever get here. Because I have a way of organizing everything, and I put the questions into a file, and so if you don't do what I ask to get it to me, there's a chance that it may not be answered. Okay, is there a difference between the dust used to create Adam and the earth used to create animals? The scripture actually says, and the earth brought forth, and that's a blanket statement that God created the animals, and then from the creation came forth other things. In other words, he created animals, and then the earth and the plants and the earth brought forth. It does not mean that, you know, you look down and out of the ground a deer popped up. There were deer that brought forth deer, and trees that brought forth trees, and so on. So the language is different that way, but there is a huge difference between the way that God created man and the way he created animals. And he created man, he formed him from the dust, and then he breathed the breath of life into him. It's a different way of doing that, and animals and people are different. Animals do have spirit, and we need to understand that, but they are created differently, and there is a difference between who they are and what they are, although there are animals that are almost as bright as people, and some brighter. So it's not an intelligence thing, it's a creation thing. Animals do what they're created to do, and are very good at it. And if you've ever watched a cat hunt, you know they think. They prepare. There's thought involved in how they're going to do and how they sneak up and what they're after. And they know it's not like cats will just chase anything. They have their preferences, and I'm just using cats as an example, but it doesn't mean that they're lesser intelligent life. The truth is, we have no idea whether a worm has equal intelligence to a person, because none of us are worms, so we can't actually have that conversation. Okay, we watch ants build things. We watch, the animals are created with absolute intelligence, and we don't know that they're not smarter than us. We don't know that they are either, for that matter, but it's important for us not to come to conclusions, because listen, if anybody's watched this election cycle, there is no proof there's intelligent life down here. I mean, so just say God created man differently for that. Okay, I'm going to do Sam's question. Well, actually, let me do David's second question. I love this question, Dave. It says, is it possible that Adam and Eve were clothed with the same radiance that Moses had, pure light, and after sin it was gone, and then their nakedness was seen by themselves? Sure. It's also possible it wasn't, but absolutely, there's no reason to discount that could exactly be what it is, that the radiance of God was upon them so strong that there was a clothing, a covering on them. So, yeah, absolutely. There's no reason so that can't be accurate. There's also no reason to put all your money on it. But it's a great question. The reason I say it's a great question, last week I had some fantastic questions also. I love it when people read the Bible and you can tell they're reading it and they're digging into it and they're praying about it and they're seeking the Lord about things. These questions are not just, well, did it really happen on the seventh day? You know, these are people that actually are thinking about the Scripture and digging. So I thank God for that. Okay, let's everybody turn to Exodus 18 for this question. What is beeping? Oh. Okay, so it says, with it being voting season, can you take a minute and discuss voting in regard to Exodus 18:21? Exodus 18:21 says, and you shall choose out of all the people able men such as fear God, men of truth, hating unjust gain, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, rulers of 10. I think we can connect this verse to in the book of in the New Testament where they were choosing people to serve the widows and orphans, and he said they had to be full of the Spirit, men of honest report, and it's a similar idea to this. So, in answering the question, I think that that we need to choose people who are able to do things that are men of truth, hating unjust gain, and place such over them to be rulers, and so on. Here's the problem with this, and it doesn't matter, and I'm not saying it's a problem with that verse. Here's our problem today. As much, it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, both main candidates have lied to us. So are they men of truth? I listened to somebody, a liberal commentator yesterday, make the statement, the undecided voters that are left are trying to decide between the things Trump will say and the things Biden would do. In other words, they're trying to choose between bad things Trump might say and bad things Biden would do. And there was a liberal commentator saying that the concern is that Trump is a horrible person who has done some good things for our nation. And he's done many of the things, whether you like him or not or agree with his policies, many of the things he said he was going to do when he was running for president, he's done. Like moving the embassy to Jerusalem, like the insulin cost reduction. Like there's a long list. It's amazing if you actually look. There's a long list of things that he said, I'm going to do these things, and he did them. Putting judges on the bench that were originalists and people that would go by the Constitution rather than legislating from the bench. Those are things that he's done. But at the same time, I totally wish there was somebody with that didn't have diarrhea of the mouth that was running for president. I'd like to be able to choose somebody that I go, yeah, that's the person I want. I think that most of us would want that. So the problem is that neither person that's up there right now, if we went by the strict interpretation of this text, fits this bill. So you have two options then. You can vote for somebody else and write in somebody's name or something, but the reality is, unfortunately, the way, unless 320 million people did that also, or whatever, the 150 million adults, whatever it is, did that also, your vote would be a non-count. Like somebody, a governor, I think from Georgia or somewhere, a former governor, whatever, said he voted for Ronald Reagan. Well, Ronald Reagan's gone. So that vote isn't going to count for anything, because there's not going to be enough people voting for Ronald Reagan to run, and if he did win, he couldn't serve, because being alive is a prerequisite to being president, or at least it should be. So anyhow, so then it comes down to, if you can't say that's my man, that's who I want, and there are those in this room and those watching that can say that. They can look at President Trump or former Vice President Biden and say, that's my man. I think they're the one God has for the day. But if you can't do that, let me suggest you do what I'm going to do, which is voting for issues. I'm voting for biblical values and issues. So I look at the two sides and I say, first of all, who is for life? Because Torah, everything is based on life. We can violate the Sabbath. Above all my Sabbaths you must keep, except in the case of life. If an ox is in the ditch, you get the ox out the ditch. And again, we're talking about oxen, not the brightest. If you're thinking, if comparatively, well, now they may be smarter than all of us, as I said. Someone posted on Facebook yesterday, that moment when you realized your pet has trained you to do something. I mean, if you got cats, your cat's not empty in your toilet. So when you think about it, they may be smarter than we think. But who's for life? Is a candidate okay with killing a baby after it's born for the convenience of the mother? Okay, that's to me a biggie. Are they for religious freedom? Are they for marriage, biblical marriage? Are they for justice? Matter of fact, I have, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but are they for Israel? Are they for law and order? Now, notice I didn't say police officers. My son's a police officer. I work with sheriff. I know there's good and bad in everything, but are they for law and order? Everybody, biblically minded, should be for law and order, because that's what the Bible's all about. It's God's law for His order. Okay, so are they for those things? That, to me, clarified how I have to vote in this election. So those are standards that I look at, because if I can't see the person as fitting this qualification, then I look to the party and the platform. And there's one party that's pro-God, and there's one party that wanted to take God out of their platform altogether. So when I look at these things, the answer becomes much more clear. So I just want to say that. Now, I will say, and I'm totally leaving I ran out of questions, so I can do this now. I'm totally leaving the question and answer thing and say that I have been praying for some time about running for state office. I have not made a decision out yet, but there are things that I'd like to see change that people aren't changing, and many of them have to do with justice. I think we spend way too much money for prisons and not enough money for attorneys. And I say that because I was unjustly arrested, unjustly put into a jail, unjustly tried, and went through not only a grand jury hearing, but a preliminary hearing, and then a trial, and then another trial, and then a civil trial. And the only reason I wasn't convicted of doing something I didn't do was that I had an attorney that I could afford to handle my case. And most people don't have that. But do you know that a state attorney is like $50,000 a year? That's what we pay a state attorney, starting out about $50,000 a year. You know it costs $100,000 a year to keep somebody in jail? But in our country, at this point in time, you get the justice you can afford. Those with attorneys get better plea deals. They get better, things. And so I would like to see, and I don't know that I would be the one to do it, because getting a Messianic Jew elected to statewide office would be near impossible. It would be a God thing, because the Christians won't like me because I'm Jewish, and the Jews won't like me because I believe in Yeshua, and it makes it difficult to deal with things. But that's one of the things that we need to really do. So it would cost us less money to hire and provide better representation for people that need it than it would to keep putting people in prison, which not only destroys their life, and look, some of these folks are guilty. And guilty people should go to jail as they're convicted and as they're sentenced. But it also affects their families. And that affects us too, because not only do we pay $100,000 a year to keep them in jail, but now we pay for housing and food and education and medical and all for their families on top of that. So I'd like to see that change. Another thing I'd like to see changed is, and listen carefully when I say this, there is a difference between a 23-year-old that has an ungodly relationship with a 16-year-old and a 23-year-old that has abuses a 6-year-old, a 6-month-old. Our law doesn't see it that way. The way it's written right now, if you're 23 and a young lady, if you pick up a girl in a bar, and this, I know someone this happened to, went to a bar. Now, it's ungodly. I'm not making excuses for ungodly behavior. But he was 23. He was in the military. He picked up a girl at a bar. She was drinking in the bar. He took her back to a hotel. They were ungodly. Her father found out, had him arrested. Do you know in Florida, that's a death penalty case? That's a capital offense. Because of the age. He's on the exact same list that he has to show everywhere he moves, everything he does, as somebody who's 40 who molested a 2-year-old. And I think that our laws need to be changed. I don't think we need to be, I'm not saying there shouldn't be, for people that purposely do violate the law, there shouldn't be punishment. But I think that our laws need to be adjusted so that we don't treat people that were deceived in a bar in the same way legally we treat somebody who purposely abused a baby. But that's things that right now, those are things in Florida. So there's things I'd like to see changed in justice, because as a rabbi, I'm all about justice. And we have people, look, we've had people leave our congregation because they got on Google and started Googling people's names in the congregation. Because I know it might surprise you, but almost everybody in our congregation wasn't saved at one point. And I mean, almost everybody. There was a point they weren't saved. And so there's people that have baggage that they drag with them. But look, there are people that Yeshua ministered to, people that the disciples ministered to, that came to the Lord and came to faith, and they didn't say, okay, you guys, you're in a different congregation than we are. You guys don't have the same salvation we do. God's forgiveness isn't the same for you as it is for us. And again, I'm very open about the fact if you search my name, you're going to find I got arrested for second-degree felony theft in Alabama. Because I got accused of stealing my own furniture. And that's what happened. We rented an unfurnished mobile home, when we moved there to take over as leading a congregation there. When we moved our furniture, and the people that owned the building claimed it was furnished when we got there. And now we had to go through all kinds of stuff, but it's funny, the things that they claimed that we took, that they said it's this chair, it's this, all those things we had records because the people from the congregation we took brought the furniture to us. So they had receipts for furniture they bought. They had pictures of the furniture in their mom's house. So we had all this evidence that I didn't do what they claimed I did. But that doesn't change the fact that if you look at my record, it still has that arrest on my record. Even though I was found innocent and went through all the trial and all those things. So I think that justice involves more than what we're doing. And like I said, I don't know that I'll run. It's in the back of my mind because I kind of feel like I'm closing in on 60. And if I am going to ever do anything, I need to make my mind up to do it. Now, let me say this. Doing that wouldn't mean I was leaving here. Because believe it or not, serving in the Florida legislature is a part-time gig that you only work a few weeks a year. It's not that. And they don't even. Okay. So, but it wouldn't change what I do here. But it would. It is. There are things I would like to voice to see changed as far as justice in our community, in our state, because there's way too many people being punished simply because they don't have the money to fight in court. Or okay, I'm out of time. You can cut that off. Do you know the percentage of people